Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew First Culture podcast. This is Jeremy again, and I have some great news today. I've brought some friends, so it's not going to be just me rambling on by myself. We've got some good friends that have got a great message to share, and I am really looking forward to this conversation that I'm sure I have an idea of some directions it may go, but I honestly don't have any clue on exactly how great it's going to be because we are just going to shoot it from the hip and go at it. But today I've got from Yoga for First Responders, I've got Olivia Mead and Eric Brenneman. How are you guys doing?
Morning,
Great.
Jamie. Doing great today. Thanks for having us on the show, man.
You bet. So just a brief kind of touching on how I was introduced to you both. I was luckily and blessed, or whatever you want to call it, be a part of the tactical resiliency team with or training with Rick George, and I've talked a lot about that on past episodes. So if you've listened to anything, you've definitely heard a lot of kind of how I feel about all that. But Erica I'm sorry, my wife's name is Erica, so I might have an issue with
It's
it.
gonna happen a lot.
I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm secure enough. It's all good.
Eric and Olivia's Yoga for First Responders is a big piece of that program that we are a part of. And so I have met Eric in person a few times and had some great conversation, especially in Atlanta with him. Olivia was playing the role of mother and had to stay home with their young one. And so this is literally the first time I have actually met her, at least virtually. So very excited to have you both on. Just the knowledge and expertise that you both carry is very incredible to me. I'm learning more and more about all of these things, and it's so important the more I learn to share and spread the word of what you all are trying to do. So just kind of to get that out there.
Yeah.
Let's get, I guess, just throw the grenade out and just say, so Yoga for First Responders, what is the purpose of it? What is the story of it? And what are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, so you said it perfectly with grenade. Let's throw the grenade out there. Word yoga. Everyone's like, and so before you turn off the episode, everyone go to sexier things. Hear us out. So most people, when they hear the word yoga, are immediately going to think of stretching, flexibility, zenning out, relaxation, yoga pants, weird positions, hippies, soccer moms. I've heard it all. And I totally get it because that's the marketing of yoga in the West is, and do you know why? And I don't blame them. It's because yoga is $1 billion, multi-billion dollar business. And they're going to continue to market to the demographic that is going to shovel out $150 for yoga pants. So God bless them. But unfortunately, the populations that really need the authentic benefits of yoga, such as military, first responders, will then become isolated from the practice because of the marketing, which is not toward them, right? And so that's why we get this bad rap with yoga. The true intention, the original intention of the yoga practice, which started 5,000 years ago, no joke, okay, was to train warriors. And it was to train warriors to be elite, to have mental mastery above their opponents, to be able to be calm and centered. And this tool, the body, the nervous system, the brain, those are all tools that, that are so powerful that if we don't discipline and train them, that they will take over us, they will master us. We'll be victims to our own mind. We'll be victims to our own body. And you guys probably already know what I'm talking about. Aches and pains in the body, the mental spirals, not being able to sleep, stuck in a hypervigilant state. That's your tools owning you. And it makes you completely what would be the opposite of a high performer, a low performer, or just, just someone who is not in control of their own system, right? So the original intention of yoga is mastery of the mind and optimal functioning of the entire system, all the systems that you have. And so yoga for first responders takes yoga back to that original intention, specifically to the cultures who need it. And they need it because in your profession, your nervous system, your brain, your body takes a beating every day. Even if you don't actually have a call or a quote unquote tough call, when you go to work, you're on. Anything could happen. That is extremely stressful. In fact, it is more stressful than the call itself, because when the call comes in, you know where you're going. I mean, you don't know what you might find, but you have an idea, you're focused, you're in flow. But before that, when there's, it's the unknown, that's the most stressful. So it's not like we're teaching this because of, it's not like critical incident stress management where there was a critical incident, we're going to address this. It's not in case something really bad happens. No, this is a fundamental skill that someone should have just to enter this profession. Anyway, that is a long-winded way. As you can see, I get fired up about this, but yeah, so I'm going to stop talking, but that's basically it.
Yeah. And that's, that's funny because I've heard stories about you and that fire, but I've not seen it, but I definitely have seen the same from Eric. Eric is the very unassuming person in that group of giants, that we are training with Rick and his crew. But I would honestly say he's the scariest person in that group. And most of the people in that class figured that out pretty quickly as well. Yeah. And so, Eric, I mean, do you have anything to add on to that to kind of to bring home the point any more?
Yeah, absolutely. So to the point of being the scariest person in the room, it was kind of funny before we started our last training in Atlanta, just listening to the students as they were coming in, and I walked into the room and one of the guys I could hear him, they're like, oh shit, that's the yoga guy. So I heard it. And so I came in, I was like, what is that supposed to mean? I'm the yoga guy. Like, well, I've seen the videos and it's going to be the hardest part of this whole class. And they're like,
oh, your secret's out now.
and I was like, how'd you know I was the yoga guy? And they're like, well, because of the beard. So I was like, yes, the beard precedes me, which I'll take. So no, Olivia's absolutely right. So, and Jeremy right too. I do have a passion for this. So I spent 13 years in the fire service, was part of my peer support team on the department that I was on. And quite honestly, men and women, we have got to be doing better from a mental health wellness standpoint for our brothers and sisters. And so I'm passionate about this because I want to start moving the conversation upstream from peer support, from clinical clinicians, to see if we can stop people from actually falling into the river of the downward spiral first, instead of having to put a net up at the bottom of the stream. And so what we do is all backed by literature. It's all backed, it's evidence-based, and it's all proven to be a proactive training tool. And that's the key word, is proactive training, so that we can actually train our mind, body, and nervous system to work and respond the way we want it to, versus what Olivia was talking about, responding the way it's going to if we don't train it. And so we've got it's a bold statement, but honestly, like, I've got it up on our website that when suicides are outpacing line of duty deaths by 300% and 400%, we're not doing good enough. Like, let's be blunt about it. Like, one of the things that makes us different is that we don't pull many punches. We used to, but we don't anymore. The message is very clear. We have got to be doing better as a culture to be taking better care of ourselves and those around us. And I believe this is a critical tool, which is why I'm thankful to be here with you today.
Yeah. And I think that's just a pretty good place to, I wouldn't say start, because we're already started, but to kind of continue the conversation, as you talked about that preemptive move. And, you've talked about even throwing the statement out that you want to put the critical incident stress teams and peer support teams out of business. And I truly know your heart behind that. That's not because you hate those things.
Oh,
It's because those things are in place because we haven't done our job beforehand.
right.
And that's where you are wanting to plug yourselves into to prevent those things from happening. And I think that is a great way to look at it, to truly start helping us attack these problems before we even have to deal with them. And so that's a great way to say it, really. And I know that's why I love, talking to you both, because that fire inside you, it's not just because that's the personality you have. It's because you're building it from a true passion,
Mm.
and you know that how important it is. So that being the case, how can you how can we do a better job of incorporating these type of things to shut some of these things down before they become problems?
Yeah. And
You
we've been talking about this specific topic. In fact, this was what we were hoping to be our topic of our current podcast we're going to release, is training. So
Okay.
once again, God and the universe provides. And so just to touch briefly before I let Olivia respond on how we can make this part of training, is you mentioned the part of that we want to put peer support and clinicians and critical incident teams out of business. And you said it eloquently, that that's from a good place in our heart, not because we hate those people.
Yeah.
I'm not naive and dumb enough to actually think they will ever go out of business.
Not really.
We have a tough job. Life is going to happen. Those resources will always be there. But it goes back to your point of we can do better before people even start to need those problems. And so how can we start to institutionalize training, I think, is the crux of the issue. And I think, Olivia, you were chomping at the bit on that one.
Well, what you just asked was literally exactly, I was about to take over your podcast and to ask you a question. I'm a host now, because I was about to ask you the exact same thing that you just asked me. You two, you're still on the job. Eric spent 13 years on the job. I am not in fire service. I went through a fire academy in order to learn the job as much as I could. It was the hardest and most fun thing, I've ever done. And I did learn a lot, and I continue to ask questions, but I'm not inside. So we do the best we can to make it as easy as possible for people to access, right? So, I pride myself on never telling anyone no. Okay, the budget's not there, the time's not, let me figure it out. Let me figure this out for you. We can do it. I've taught yoga at 9 p.m. For 5 minutes at a roll call for a police department. I was teaching it, all different hours for Eric's department, trying to see what was going to make it work. We have our digital platforms now. So if there's an in-person teacher not available, they can go on the app, they can do courses. We've tried to make it so accessible. And I also hear a lot of support. Yes. Yet when it comes down to it, money, line item, time, is someone just saying yes because they know they need to? Well, I don't know what the sticking point is. And what I wanted to ask you two, and we just released a blog on our podcast called Necessity versus Demand. And this actually came from my yoga teacher who I study with via Zoom in India. I went to India, studied with him, and now I can study, with him via Zoom. And he brought this up just in general in the yoga world, is there's what we truly need to work on and train in life and everything. And then there's the sexy stuff, that we kind of default to instead. Our hose drills, fun is going into the burn tower fun. Yes, that's why you're here. That's why you're doing the job. So of course we kind of default to that. And of course there's, what I call those is the short-term urgent tactical skills that you need, right? But if you're at home on the couch on disability or had to retire early or whatever the case may be, you're not on the fire ground to do those short tactical urgent skills anyway. So I understand they're important for the job, but if you're at home, you're not doing them. Or if you're on the job and you're low functioning, low performance, then you're not doing those tactical skills great anyway. It's this catch-22. And I'm stuck for, we're offering it on a silver platter. We have the evidence. In fact, I'll talk about a research study in a little bit that shows you we're not bullshitting anyone here.
Yeah.
What's the deal? What is the issue that, you know, people will nod yes, oh, I love what you're doing, I love what you're doing, but won't tell their crew, get out here, we are doing yoga an hour, 1 hour or less, 30 minutes every time we're on shift. What's the problem with that?
Yeah.
I truly don't understand it. And so that's why I don't have an answer. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the article I wrote. I wrote an article a few years back for Firefighter Nation, and the title of the article was, it was a clickbait title, I'll be fully honest, but it basically said, is training mental resilience more important than hose drills? Because I was making the argument in that case, so what has Olivia exactly said, that if we're off the job, the hose drills don't matter. Pulling a hose off the truck doesn't matter. Hooking a hydrant doesn't matter. If we're sitting at home because we haven't prepared ourselves mentally and emotionally for the job that we have to do, it doesn't matter. And so my argument is, and this is an argument that we make often, and is that these kinds of trainings, this kind of skill set must be implemented from recruitment. So before they're even a firefighter in this case, through retirement. So from recruitment through retirement, because we see the same issues that, number one, are the young men and women getting into the job. They have no idea about what they're signing up for, other than it looks cool. I want to fight fire. Hanging out with the guys at the firehouse is awesome. But there's a whole other side of it that they're not prepared for, and they're never getting the training for. And then we get through the career, hopefully we can actually start to thrive through our career instead of just survive it. And then get to the end of our retirement, and now we have a whole host of new problems that are popping up, that we've lost our singular sense of identity, because for your entire life you said, I am a firefighter. I mean, I haven't been riding the truck for 5 years at this point, and I still struggle with that, quite frankly. I mean, I do, like deep down at my core. And I know there's this saying that once a firefighter, always a firefighter, kind of like the Marine Corps statement. But at the end of the day, I'm not putting on the turnouts. I'm not hopping on the rig. I'm not in the excitement of it, right? And so I still struggle with that, even though I have a very important mission in life now, serving public safety from the mental health wellness side. And so if you're not in that world, it's why we see our brothers and sisters literally working the job until they're 65 years old, retiring and dying a year later. Like they're not, because they don't have the tools to deal with retirement then. And so if we want to get to the point of organizational change, personally, it starts with a fantastic leadership at the top. You have to have the top bought in. And then the second place it starts is down at the very, very bottom in the academy. Because if the top is bought in, then they're going to give the support they need to the academy instructors, and the academy instructors then start to instill these kinds of tools into the recruits from day one. And then obviously, so that's the first two steps. And then the third step to make this thing a go is whoever is that in law enforcement world, it's the field training officer, and the fire service world, it's whoever they're going to be with that first day out on shift, that company officer. Because if they get on the truck and the company officer says it, and we've all said it, okay, academy is great, but now you're going to learn it for real, you know? And so if that company officer that they go to out of academy says, everything you just learned in academy is BS, especially that yoga, breathing, mental stuff, that young firefighter is so impressionable at that point, though, from that moment forward, they'll think, oh, this is bunk, I'm out. I don't need that junk. And so those are the three steps to actually institutionalize this. And it sounds impossible. And yet where there's a will, there's absolutely a way. Because I hang my hat on this agency, this organization, because we were talking a little bit about it. If one of our gold star partners is Chicago Police Department, for example. Chicago Police Department has mandated all 12,000 of their police officers, 12,000, have in-service training in our protocol. Meaning that if Chicago Police Department can figure out a way to train, to mandate training for 12,000 people, I hate to break it to you, small town Iowa, where I came from, you can figure it out too.
Yeah.
I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. But for our mission specifically, it goes back to that beginning. Dispelling the misconceptions of what yoga is, what it's about, how we do things differently. And then we start to implement that organizational change management from the top to the bottom, and then that middle management layer. So that's my thought. But when you're in the ground, like on the ground, boots on the ground, as a company officer, you hold a lot of power from those day-to-day trainings. You might not start to change at the very, very top and make an entire change in an organization, but on your crew specifically, day-to-day, you can be that change agent. You've had a little bit of experience with that since we met in Atlanta. And I'll also talk a little bit about Captain Mark Mykoski, who's part of our training cadre too, because he's had really good success with his crew because he understands what we're doing. And he went back, he came through our train the trainer program and took it back to his crew and started teaching his crew, not the entire department, his crew of 3 other guys, a yoga class on shift. And you know what? Those guys started asking for it. Hey, Cap, when are we going to do yoga today? Hey, Cap, we really liked last shift. Can we do it again today?
Eric Mills in Kansas.
Yeah.
And again, I want to point out, this is not like when I started this at Los Angeles Fire Department. And when I moved to Iowa from Los Angeles, some people were saying, oh, you were good here in LA, but when you go to the Midwest, they're not going to, take to this. A firefighter is a firefighter all over the country, and the needs are the same. And, so we're talking about, Mark's in Georgia, this guy Eric Mills is in Kansas, same thing.
Oklahoma. One of our best department is small town Henderson, Kentucky, for God's sake.
Yeah, Henderson, Kentucky's killing it. So the same thing is that Eric Mills was teaching his crew every shift, and they started asking for it because of the consistency. So they were able to feel the benefits. So so Jeremy, I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts, and how do you think this could happen?
I think I'll get into my thoughts here in a second, but I think probably one of the scariest things that Eric brought up is that first day on shift. Even if we put in all the work to get all these things in place, you're still going to have these people that are going to take a dump on it when the new people get on shift. And I hate that. And it's not confined to this. It's across the board on anything that they don't like. And so anyway, that was just like more of a soapbox moment that I just really get irritated with things like that. But as far as just me personally, so like you said, I am a station officer. I enrolled in your program as far as the what do you call basically just the subscription?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's our
online.
It's called, the official name is On Demand.
On demand. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can use it on demand.
So we as a crew we've done gone through a couple of your programs every shift, and just using that as a way to kind of introduce us all to it. And it started out, I just asked kind of Eric, what would be basically a first day to run everybody through. And so, we went through the breathing video to get everybody used to what you're trying to pass on as far as that goes, and then the importance of that, and then into the daily program, just a 20-minute program. That's what we did the first day, maybe the first couple of days, just to work our way into it. But I do feel like it is so important, and I do wonder how to make the big move, but that's the way that's the problem with me in my mind. I always have to gear myself back and do what Mark did and just focus on my crew, because at the end of the day, that's all I can control. So I can control that my crew does yoga or practices breathing or has a good discussion about mindfulness or segmenting or any of these things. I can control that. And so that has been a priority, absolutely, since, however long it's been since we've been in Atlanta, because it really was a game changer in my life, I would say, for sure, but especially in my journey as a firefighter and a station officer to see how truly important it is to, I'm trying to look at what you call the mastery of the mind, like Olivia said at first, because I can't go into any details just because it's not my experience, but I've had a very close family member here lately experience some mental issues, and it is crazy what the freaking mind can do to you. It is absolutely, it just, it's nuts. And so to be able to control those systems and use your mind to its full potential and overcome the things that we face, it's critical, and you talked about it, I think, Olivia, first, is it's not even the big calls or the bad calls or the nasty calls. I just literally talked about this last night at the volunteer department that I in the town I live in. It could be the 3,000th normal regular BS call that you ran on, but there's just something about it that hits a trigger in you. It could be a smell, it could be a voice, it could be a sight that you see. It could be anything. So you never know truly what is coming and when it's coming, and especially if you're not preparing yourself. So I really do think that, like you said, Eric, I and anybody else can only control our little circle. If you are not a decision maker for an entire department or shift, you might only have a station, or you might only have you and another new person, whatever it is, whatever your circle is, that's the influence you have. And so maybe it's just one more person, but you can push that influence out and show people how important this stuff is. We had before the trip to Atlanta, we had a pretty decent multiple family dwelling fire. And I'm not a big war storyteller, but the story behind the story is that on the way to that, radio traffic came out that there's possibly victims trapped. And I've got 2 firefighters in the back that just barely have a year on. And I could tell that both of them were getting amped up. And I didn't have the opportunity in that time because we were really close to the scene to address it. But afterwards, this is what we talked about. We talked about taking just maybe even a cycle or 2 of some type of breathing techniques to calm yourself down, because we train for these things, what you're doing, but they were actually talking themselves into doing things differently than we've always trained, just because of that excitement.
Because of the
And
power of the
so
mind.
just talking, yeah. And that's where it starts, is just having that communication and doing what you can influence those you can influence. That's my answer.
Jeremy, I had goosebumps to hearing you talk, because you are, I mean, I wish you were a firefighter in my town, because I would want, I want firefighters like you. And I think everyone should want their community public safety to have the mindset that you have. I mean, your crew is incredibly fortunate to have you. One thing I want to say about leading, and, you're a leader, so you can, have your crew, guide your crew. I think if anyone's watching you, you are a leader. So if you don't have any, rank or pull, but someone sees you in the bay doing your yoga, that's influence. So you're influencing yourself and then whoever's watching you, right? Number one. Number two, to what you said with that call, I did a ride along with FDNY. I have some good friends, there that I would visit. And while I was visiting them and having dinner with them, a call came in and they asked me if I wanted to jump on. Now, what's funny about New York City, you probably think it's all, really like go, 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 go. There's so much traffic that are not going very quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was a fire. I think it was in the subway or something. So there was a little bit of amping up. And as they were, putting on their packs and stuff in the truck, one guy said to me, "I've been on for a few years, but I still get amped up no matter what." So I said, "Okay, keep putting everything on. Is it okay if I, just put my hands on you for a second? And he said, yeah. So I put my hands, where the strap is here. I put my hand here and I said, breathe in as you tighten the strap, breathe into it, breathe into my hand. You keep getting ready, but you just keep breathing into my hands, right? So the point is exactly what you said. As you are gearing up and getting ready, you can simultaneously doing breath work that keeps you in control up here. It does not. Now, let me make it clear. Mindfulness does not equal slow at all.
Yeah.
So people think of mindfulness, they think of, no, mindfulness means that there is an awareness of what you are doing. There's an intention, there's an action towards that intention, and there's an awareness of what you're doing. It creates a not time connected space between stimulus and response. The only way you'll remember to do breath work and you will perform that action mindfully under stress is if you train for it. It will never happen automatically if you don't put the training in. So if someone says, all right, guys, we were really kind of spiraling on that call, and you got to make sure to be mindful next time. You got to make sure to be intentional. And they're all going to be like, yep, yes, sir. Got it. Won't happen unless you train for it. And that's what yoga is. It's the training for that stuff that there is no training for. You're told, have the warrior mindset, be more mindful, okay, great. Got it.
What does that mean?
That means, when I did police academy and there was in our defensive tactics class, they showed these videos of a call going good, a call going not good. What's the difference, guys? Well, that officer had warrior mindset and that officer didn't. All right, have a good day. And I was like, when's the warrior mindset class? When do I get to learn that? That's the issue.
Yeah. And actually you hit on something really, really critical. And it goes back to how do we implement this into training, this sense, the need versus the necessity versus the want. So we need air pack training. One of our skills, day one in academy, you're putting on, and maybe day two, but you're putting on bunker gear in your pack. I mean, that's the very basic skill, just literally putting on pack. And so if they say, we don't have time for yoga class, we can't implement this. And this is a conversation I was having with some of our cadre as well from the TRT group, is okay, fine. Then we implement these skills into our tactical training. So for putting air packs on, you can coordinate breath work with movement. That is actually, at the end of the day, what yoga is, a little bit deeper than that. But so if we go up to reach up our straps and tighten them, we can inhale, reach the straps, exhale, tighten, inhale, pull the belly or the waist strap, exhale, tighten. And so you can find moments where there's very critical movements that you can tie breath work into it, and you can even say to yourself, I am calm, I'm in control. As you do those two movements, I am calm, grab the strap, exhale, I'm in control. And now you don't have to find time for a yoga class, because you as the training instructor can be like, hey, this is a technique that I picked up from these guys or from whoever it is. It's how the fire service works. It's the pass it along thing. And all of a sudden the entire crew is doing breath work and mindset training as they're putting their packs on. And you've never taught a quote unquote yoga class and never had to find time for a yoga class.
Doing the skills themselves could be yoga, right? Actually fighting the fire could be yoga. Helping a patient could be yoga if you're implementing the intention and the mindfulness behind it. So that is yoga. Yoga isn't down dogs and warrior two. Yoga is life. And it's how you do life is the yoga practice.
Right. So we've touched on it a couple of times, and it's a critical thing to draw out, just to tease the thread a little bit, is that research shows, this is actually, I pulled this from a clinician from a video from YFFR peer support, is that the research shows that our body, mind, and nervous system actually does a pretty good job of putting itself together after the big, bad, ugly call. But yet those are the ones that get the spotlight and the attention.
Yeah.
Where the body, mind, and nervous system is terrible at the cumulative stress load of 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years on the job. It's that constant drip. I mean, it's that slow eroding of the body, mind, and nervous system that we aren't even aware of until the Grand Canyon is formed. I mean, that started with that little trickle of water flowing over the top of the earth, and now it's a mile deep canyon. Olivia had a captain at the time who's now a chief of a police department tell her it's literally like having somebody tap on your arm. For the first hour, it might be annoying as hell. After 30 years, if somebody just keeps tapping on your arm, there's a good chance your arm's going to be literally falling off, because it's just that constant tap. And that's what a career in the fire service, law enforcement, public safety is like. It's just that 30-year tap. And all of a sudden your arm's falling off. You're like, I don't know why my arm's falling off,
Yeah.
And so that's where the proactive training comes in. We have to start training for that cumulative stress load of the career. And you can put it in those small tactical trainings, putting the pack on, how you grab hose off the truck, inhale, grab the hose, exhale, start to walk. You can find it in those small moments if you look for it.
Yeah. And I think another piece of this too, if we're kind of continuing the conversation of how to implement these things into training and into daily life, is just seeing the effects in person. Like with the class we're involved in, they have heart rate monitors, so you can literally in real time watch the heart rates jump and fall and all that. And to sit there and have them exercise in whatever way for an amount of time and get to where they're 170s, 180s, 190s, and literally just stop, have them circle up and take a couple cycles of whatever breathing technique they want, and then check it again, and it's dropped by 20, 30, 40 beats a minute. That it's truly impressive to see it in person. It's one thing to hear somebody talk about these things, and okay, I get it, I understand, but to see it in person, and just to see their face change and their body language change, you can just see kind of some stress and some exhaustion melt away from them. And so that, I think, is another big piece. You just, if you can work in the realization of what this is truly doing to our physical bodies, it's not just talk. It's really things that I think both of you have kind of mentioned. There's lots of data out there now, which is a great thing for you and your program to really go behind, to back you up.
Yeah. And I like to tell people that it's quote unquote cutting edge neuroscience that we're playing with right now. But all that's happened is that our neuroscience technology has gotten advanced enough to be able to show us what the body has been doing for thousands of years.
And
the
to
body
catch up with what Eastern science has known for thousands of years.
Right. And so so Western science like neuroscience and neurobiology, the folks that study that stuff really do say that there are ancient wisdom sciences, and the ones that they typically point to are yoga, mindfulness, and meditation as the three ancient wisdom sciences that they're now proving with modern day cutting edge neuroscience. And so it's really fun to be here now at the tip of the spear from the science side of things. That's what drives both Olivia and myself, and it's a passion of ours. And that's when I say everything we do is evidence-based and found in the literature. So we're pulling from that traditional yoga practice, but we're backing it up with literally stacks and stacks and stacks of textbooks at this point that show the data behind how it works, why it works. And so I love having these conversations with people and starting to pull this stuff out, and like, yoga is still not for my guys. And I'm like, well, I've controlled what I can control at this point, and I've given you every resource in the world you would need to justify this. And if you're still just closed-minded enough that you're like, because of that 4-letter word, it's not for my crew, fine, that's on you. I've controlled what I can control at that point. And I would love, there's a whole nother episode just diving into the science behind it. But I think Olivia mentioned earlier our specific research study. And so this is a really cool piece of what we've done.
That's what I was going to give a little preview of. Now we have one that's published on our online course, but one that we did of in-person training of a 16-class program. It's not published yet, so I don't want to give too many details until it's published, but I'll tell you this, which is really cool. We had a control group and we had the intervention group, the ones that got yoga. About 30% of them, and this was over 5 different departments, were experiencing kind of true post-traumatic stress symptoms. And that's a tough pill to swallow because they're out and working still. So it's only getting worse for them. But anyway, so the symptoms, let's say we're about here, okay? And I'm pointing kind of high with my 2 fingers for people who are listening to this, like at charts, right? Okay. The control group that didn't get the yoga, after the 4 months or so, their symptomology stayed about the same. The group that got yoga had a huge drop. And the chart, when it is published and you see this chart, it's an incredible huge drop down in their symptomology of post-traumatic stress. Then no yoga for a while, right? And guess what happened? The symptomology started to creep back up. So this shows that it's not a magic pill. It's a way of life. It is consistency over and over again. But it also shows that this is working and you cannot deny it. And so if you don't find time for it, that's on you. And the health and safety of your crew is on you. The other thing I want to say about Eric called yoga a 4-letter word, and a lot of people have suggested to me, why don't you just take the word yoga out of it? Then people will be, and what am I supposed to call it? Like tactical movement with breath. You know, here's the thing is we don't use Sanskrit. We change things to be more culturally informed. We've done a lot of work on that. The reason I won't take the word yoga away is, guys, this is yoga. Okay. Yeah. I want to re-educate on that. I don't want to trivialize it. I don't want to, even betray it. It's yoga, but this is what it is. And so I've kind of felt in my heart that we just need to re-educate on that word, which I know is swimming upstream, but I don't want to call it something it's not. This is yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The online course, the published study, the other study she mentioned too is worth mentioning because you said you're doing online yoga with your crew, which the original study was actually supposed to be in person as well, but kind of COVID was a terrible disaster. But at the same time, there were a lot of silver linings that came out of it too. And so this study ended up being pushed into an online study, like everything did at the height of COVID. And so now we actually have a 6-week program that's built solely for online use, about an hour a week spread over 3 or 4 days. And even that, the goal of that study was to show if online resilience training is effective. Well, number one, the answer came back a resounding yes. Like there is effectiveness behind it.
Oh, yeah.
But then there were some small other questions because we asked surveys of the people that were going through this class, and 2 findings. The sample size wasn't big enough because it was a pilot study to hold true weight in the research world, but it at least gives us an indication that there is something there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so what those 2 sub questions is that number one, 100% of the people that completed the 6-week program online had a statistically significant reduction in self-reported post-traumatic stress symptomology from an online program. So it doesn't even have to be in person. So that's huge, number one. And then number 2, when we start to talk about moving upstream and putting peer support and mental health clinicians out of business, is that the 100% of the people that finished also had a statistically significant change in their perception of stress. So that's a critical finding, and that starts to get a little bit into the what does that mean kind of world. But our body has basically 2 stress responses. I mean, there's only so many buttons and levers our body can push during a stressful moment. And so what they have found out is that if we push our body or train our body to go into a challenge response, we actually can push the needle towards post-traumatic growth. But if our body defaults, which is the default mode network, into a threat response, because that's the survival mechanism that we've been blessed with for millions of years, is that the stress response for threat leads to post-traumatic stress. So we need to change our perception of what stress is from threat to challenge. And so that's why you heard over and over and over again in these classes, I would ask people to out loud, is this a challenge or a threat? And have them respond back under stress that it's a challenge, because we're working to change the neural pathways. So their body starts to see that stress, the inevitable stress that's going to happen tomorrow, but we're training for it today as a challenge to their mind, body, and nervous system rather than a threat to their life. Because the body only has those two options, and we can start to train it on which way it goes. And that's a key when we start to talk about proactive training.
And that's basically you considering that reframing. Basically, we're just reframing how we're perceiving that.
Yeah, I mean, and there is a ton of literature on that. It seems way too simple. Everybody wants a really, really complicated, complicated solution. You know, they want a complicated solution. They want to pay somebody to fix the problem for them, because then they feel like they're getting value out of it. And it turns out our bodies actually really do want to thrive out of life. And so they're actually very programmable, but we've never been, I love this, what Olivia says, is that we've never been given the owner's manual to our own system, to our own body. Yeah. And so we just use or grab everything else, where it's so simple that just walking around, repeating to yourself that this is a challenge, this is a challenge, this is a challenge, changes how your body reacts and literally changes the chemicals dropped by the endocrine system, the brain, to change into a challenge response versus a stress response. And a key critical element there is DHEA. And so Kelly McGonigal, The Upside of Stress, she's done a lot of work on this. The folks at the Flow Research Collective, they've got some really interesting study on this challenge versus threat scenario stuff as well. I mean, good resources. The literature is thick on just changing the mindset around that reframing of challenge versus threat.
And you can use that technique for anything: public speaking, parenting. We're
taking your promotional exam. Like if you're not a good exam taker and you want to move up to the driver's spot, you're going to have to take a test with it. So you better do a couple of rounds of breath work and then say to myself, this is a challenge, before you start taking that test. And we've heard from many firefighters across the country, I'm not a good test taker, but taking a couple of breaths and reframing this test as a challenge helped me score better. I mean, it's over and over and over again.
Hey, Jeremy, can I ask you, because I'm so curious, and I like to ask folks who, I've seen, what's lucky about me not working in fire service in one department is I've worked with many agencies, many leaders, and I've gotten to see the gamut of personalities and egos, and and I like to ask people who I've seen that are thriving in this career, how did you get there? So what made you kind of realize and realize that you need to do some things for optimal performance? And that's, how did you get to where you are now?
So, man, that's a big question. Are you wanting to answer solely from that kind of that higher performance edge, or just all together? How
we can say all together, because you how are you different? And because you're different than other people I've met in fire service.
45 years of my life's journey is how I'm this way. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. I am so completely different than the person I was, when I was 20 and even 30, because of that life experience and what I've been through, the challenges I've faced. That's kind of the overall encompassing cop-out answer to that. But it is true. But man, it's just kind of following the path that I'm on, and looking at the opportunities that I've been given, and trying to take advantage of them. I have been so very blessed to be introduced to the right people. That's another big piece of this thing. I was introduced, I knew him, but when I got moved to my current station, the driver that I have and have had since then was somebody that has now basically put me in the seat I'm in. He slowly inspired me to be more and to take responsibility and to truly give what I had to give. Then, I thought I was a good firefighter. I thought I was a good officer, but really all I was somebody that achieved collecting a crew of people that got along and enjoyed their day. That was it. I didn't focus on training. I didn't care about anything extra. I just didn't know. And then, getting my first probationary firefighter, I say it quite a bit, but that was another punch in the face to kind of wake me up to say, you are responsible for a lot more than just collecting a fun group of people together. You are putting these people on either a path of great success and significance towards the future, or just setting them up for what is going to one day, one way or another, going to lead to shoot, I'm going blank now. What is it when you get lazy?
Complacency.
Complacency, golly. Leading them to, I mean, that's where my leadership style back then was going to lead, because that's just the way it was. So, that kind of has kept me on that trajectory. And then, just the craziness of how, and I know you're wanting to get into this anyway, so if this is where it leads, but of how I was introduced to the TRT team and kind of eventually asked on to be a part of it. It's not just coincidence. I mean, seriously, a person can't have as many coincidences as I've had in my life to get me to where I'm at. But I've just thankfully been able to take advantage of these opportunities. But it's truly trying to learn as much as I can from the experiences I've been through, trying to gain as much from the failures, trying to really take advantage of all the great people that I have been introduced to and just have affected my life. And again, taking advantage of any and every opportunity that I've been given. And that is kind of the recipe that had led me to, where I'm sitting right now.
So do you, with yoga specifically, when, you're offered yoga, here's an app for it, it's going to make you better. What do you think makes you be like, yes, absolutely, I'm going to do this, I have no qualms about it, versus someone who wouldn't touch it for with a 10-foot pole? Like, what do you think the difference is that makes you not have that resistance?
So and that's probably a good story to tell, to maybe reach a few people that don't understand. My story of yoga is a little bit further out. It didn't just start, when I met Eric and the rest of the guys a couple months ago. I've had really bad back issues for basically my entire career: bulged disc, ruptured disc, all kinds of fun stuff. And so I don't even know kind of how I was introduced to it, but in the past, I've done a lot of yoga basically just by myself. I mean, we've done it as a crew a few times, but I did a lot of yoga to kind of help with that issue. But I didn't understand what you guys are talking about. I did yoga because it made me feel better. I had no idea why. I didn't understand all the breathing and the important things that you guys have talked about. I just knew that it was an important piece of keeping my back to a place to where I could work. And so I had that relationship with it already. Of course, it's been years since I've practiced it at all, knowing that I needed to get back into it. But so here's the thing, is going into my introduction to the developing high performance program with the TRT and with you guys as a part of that, I still didn't know what yoga was about. I still just understood it as something to keep me flexible and to however it worked, it made my back feel better over time. And so I still didn't truly understand what true purpose of it was. And even I think I talked about this with Eric a few times on the Atlanta trip. I was still catching myself talking about the benefits of that flexibility from yoga. And there was a couple times where even some of the other guys on the cadre kind of caught me in like, well, yeah, I mean, that's a byproduct of yoga. That's a side effect of yoga, but it's about, a lot more. And now I understand that. But I think that is a lot of, even the people that aren't just shut door to the 4-letter word, they might just not understand what it is. Even if they're okay with trying it, it doesn't mean that you're understanding what you're doing. And I think that is one of the great things that you all are doing for yoga in general, for the fire service, for the police service, whatever, is you are putting words to the good that you're getting out of it. It's about so much more. And you're speaking it in a language that we understand as well. So all of those things are great.
So it's like the first step really is the in-service training and this is one of our rules is no one just starts on a yoga mat with us. Everyone starts in a chair and listening to this explanation. So when they get to the yoga mat, they know why they're there.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah. And the last part you said is why, and what makes us very, very different, because a lot of guys have had experience or exposure to yoga at some point in their career. It's becoming more of a norm. Whether it's Joe's wife, Sally, as a yoga teacher, so they bring her in for a couple of classes or whatever it is. But we make the argument that we are the very specialized tool for the specialized group of people. I make a joke about it to kind of make it a little bit funny, but I say we wouldn't use a sledgehammer to set a femur fracture, right? Wrong tool for the job. And that's where one of the big misconception is that yoga is yoga. And it's all the same. I tried it. We didn't work. The guys didn't like it. Whatever they've said. And I make the counter argument, but you were using the wrong tool for the wrong job. If you have a specific group of people that have been trained in this to use the right words, to use the right language, to make it extremely job specific so they can see the benefit of it out on the fire ground, it makes it a little bit easier for your crews to buy into it. And that's where we are that specialized tool for the specialized group of people.
And that's the battle we face too, is someone will say, oh yeah, the local yoga studio came in and not for us. I'm not bashing the local yoga studio. I'm just saying, oh, well, are they job specific and culturally formed for fire service? Then it's not, it's not what we do. Before we go on, and Jeremy, I know your audience is familiar with the TRT stuff. You've had Rick on and everything. But especially for our audience, we keep mentioning the Atlanta training, the TRT guys.
Yeah.
Now, in our team at YFFR, we kind of jokingly, and now it's the name of it, refer to this training as the Stay Awake training. It's really unique. There's nothing I've ever seen like it. It is not for the faint of heart. And I was wondering if you two could give us a little description of the Developing High Performance 24-hour hands-on training that is put on by the Tactical Resilience Training Team. It's started by Rick George in Florida with Dave Gillespie, Bob Carpenter, and Rick has collected the most fantastic group of knowledgeable, high performance, giving, wonderful hearted firefighters. And I have been fortunate to be included in that group with the nickname Princess of Pain. But can you guys just tell us what it's about and why someone would be signing up to go through this training?
You want to start, Eric, or you want me to start?
Okay.
I was on mute. I'm the on-site IT guy. I was saying you can.
So, for me, I'm the new guy in the group. We did the DHP program at MAFC back in mid-May, and that was my first introduction to the full program. I was lucky enough to meet a lot, basically everybody on the cadre that was there in Florida at the North Florida Fire Expo, but I was only able to stay out there a few hours because I had to speak myself. So this was my first true introduction and first true introduction as part of the team as well. And so I had no clue really what to expect. I knew that it was about resiliency, and I knew there was going to be a lot of focus on breath work and yoga as a tool to work on these things and learn these things, and mindfulness and all of these different aspects that I really didn't know much about, but I had no idea what to expect out of it. And so to be there and to truly see it all play out, it's impressive. And I think the class is so incredible, and the students that actually make it through it gain so many great tools that are just invaluable to their future career. And hopefully they share them with others and just keep that moving down the line. But to me, I just keep going back to, and both of you have addressed it before, is it just goes back to that team that Rick has created. And I can't remember the term you used before we started recording, Eric, is like powerful team or something like that. But it truly is an amazing group of people. And when I say that, I don't mean, your A team of the local church group. These aren't people that are just somebody you would look at and see as perfect citizens that, don't mess up. These are real people. And that's why I love them so much. Is, yes, from the exterior, they are the strongest people that you'll ever be around. It's like they're not scared of anything, and they know so much about mind and body. It's just impressive. But then to spend just a little bit more time with them and see how truly vulnerable they allow themselves to be, how open and honest and transparent they are about their deepest and darkest, scars. That is really what cemented my tie with them. After I saw that, and like I said, I was just with them a few hours in Florida, but it didn't even take that long for me to see that in them and make me want to be a part of it, because that is the kind of people I want to be a part of. That is the kind of people I want to surround myself with. That's the kind of person I want to be, a strong, humble person that can be vulnerable and allow others to learn from my mistakes. And so that is truly, I think, the gold of all of it is just the group of people that are behind everything. All the stuff that the knowledge that you two bring and everybody else brings, it is so important. But you put that knowledge in the hands of people that are egotistical jerks and that stand above everybody, it's worthless. It's absolutely worthless unless you put it in the hands of the people that are on that team. And so that is truly the difference maker to me with it. But like I said, I'm fairly new to the program. Eric and both of you can speak a lot more about the underbelly of it all. But I think that is about the best way I can kind of describe how I truly feel about it.
Rick's very talented at vetting and collecting the right people. And that's why I'm so, honored that he brought us in. And the group, they're my brothers. And, when I was in Florida and I was taking care of the baby at the Airbnb, but I did stop on the training ground a couple times. And one of those times I had just gotten a phone call from my pet sitter, because I had a 15-year-old disabled dog who's been with me for 15 years, had been with me for 15 years. And we knew her days were numbered, and she ended up passing away in March. But this was, when was this? Early March, February?
Early March, yeah.
It was just a few weeks later.
Yeah. And so I got a call from her, or a text that said, Abby's not doing well, and, you know, whatever. Anyway, it scared the shit out of me, because my worst fear was not being with her when she passed.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to go on that trip. Okay. So I go to visit the guys, and I'm, you know, I'm fine. But as soon as I step out, Robbie, Mark, they come up to greet me. And they ask, oh, how was your day? And just seeing their faces and how genuine they are, I start crying. Didn't plan to, but just said, oh, my dog, da, 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 da. Stopped what they're doing, embraced me, wouldn't let go, surrounded me with so much love and support, you know. And what was just so amazing to me is that they've seen, all of you guys have seen really tough stuff. And when I cry because of my dog, nothing else mattered but that. I mean, that shows their heart. And I'm truly grateful. And I'll give my little perspective before I give it to Eric to talk about his experience. But, you know, I don't even remember how I met Rick George, to be honest. I just know that one day I'm in Portland in an abandoned nursing home at 2 a.m. teaching yoga. That's the next thing I remember. I blacked out before that. So yeah, so what this is for, you know, for our audience who's listening, is this is a 24-hour hands-on training called Developing High Performance. And being up for 24 hours, you know, the typical shift for a firefighter is 24 hours. Sometimes it's 48 or longer. But it's, so kind of mimics a shift where they're training, they're doing physical activity, you do break for eating, and but they're taught, they're front loaded with tools for resiliency, breath work, yoga, how does the brain work, you know, all these different tools, even how tricks with the air bottle to make the, you know, for air management, make it last longer. And then as they're fatigued through the night, they're going through evolutions, right? And really working on, let's see what happens. It's 2 a.m. You're in a confined space, you know, whatever the case may be. Let's see what your mind does. Let's see what your heart rate does. And can you use all these tools to be able to keep up your skills when you're tired and you're over it? And because, you know, you have to be able to have that out, you know, out in the field. And so they walk away with a ruthless training, which is really tough, but they walk away with 10, 15 new mentors who have given them the tools. We just mentioned there is no training for this stuff. This is the training for it. So they've been given the tools they don't get in the academy, and often don't get even in their career. And we're fortunate that yoga is one of them. So the people that are signing up for this, we've seen the youngest, newest firefighters who miraculously know they need this for their career. And we've also seen, you know, Frank from Seattle was like a year away from retirement, and he still knew he needed this. And that like just brings tears to my eyes. I mean, the people who sign up for this training and the people who teach this training are exemplary firefighters and humans. And it isn't for everyone, but I think it should be.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my experience. But, you know, I did it in Portland, and I taught 12 yoga classes in 24 hours, ranging from 45 minutes to 5 minutes. I did sleep for 4 hours, everyone. Okay. Because guess what? I'm a firefighter. So I am going to go to sleep on a cot in an abandoned nursing home. Oh my God. But it was incredible. So anyway, and Eric was there too. And he was, you know, kind of supporting me. And then when I became pregnant and then had a baby, you know, I passed Eric off as the lead because not only does he know what we do and he's one of our top instructors, but he also is from fire service, which I'm not. So he can help with the evolutions and connect those dots even more. But anyway, Eric, what's your experience?
If you sign up for the class for nothing else, the training cadre is the reason why, period. Like these guys, to both of your points, the fellas that are teaching this class are second to none. I mean, we're in a group text thread with these guys, and it's inspiring every day. If somebody's having a bad day or a down day or an issue at home or an issue at work, whatever it is, there's a group of guys there to immediately, not with false positivity, but be there to support and to hold one another up. And when everybody's having a good day, to inspire and hold each other accountable to level up on the good days. Because it's not just about being there on the bad days, but being there even maybe more so on the good days to make sure we're still leveling up and holding ourselves accountable to be the standard of people that we aspire to be. Because it is daily work. It's a daily grind. And the most of the cadre have been through deep, dark holes, and everybody's been through something. And so they have that to draw from, personal experience. And to me, honestly, like this group of men is truly, and it just all happens to be men, but is truly the definition of what the fire service brotherhood is supposed to be about. And we hear oftentimes that like the brotherhood is dying, it's not there. And I would counter that with, it's 100% there. You may have to look for it, but it's there. And so this group of men is, to me, the definition of what it's supposed to be about. And if I've had a situation going on in my personal life with a dear friend, and so I was immediately picking up the phone and talked with Mark, for example, for an hour about his experience with a couple of things, and then could hang up there and call Rick or call Eddie or call Tuna, I mean, the guys are just there at the moment's notice. I mean, Jeremy and I have started texting since we met in Atlanta. And so it's just that, if nothing else, sign up for that. The class is hard. Let's not be honest. Let's not make no bones about it. The class is hard, but it's one of those moments where it can be not just career defining class, but a life defining class. Like if you go back and look at those key moments in your life, Jeremy, you said it earlier, it was some of the inspiration from your current driver. There was some inspiration there that you gathered. You could, if you thought about it, you could probably circle some conversations that were like, that's a critical conversation in my life that probably changed the trajectory of my life. I have no doubt that the people that go through the developing high performance class, even though it's a ball buster, will circle that date as a life-changing class, because of the power it has. And I actually was getting tears when Olivia was talking about how emotional those guys, like emotionally supportive they are. And we heard it this last time in Atlanta that from one of the guys, like they knew they were going to get their butts kicked, but they didn't know they were going to be vulnerable and open up. And we started from the cadre side first to show that this is a safe container to be a part of. And honestly, when we talk about the mental health wellness part of the fire service, that's something that we are lacking, because it's emotions get a little bit fuzzy and I don't necessarily want to talk about those. And so then we start shutting them down and stuffing them away, and then we start closing them off. And then once you start closing off the emotions, it's very hard to open that box up when you're with your family. So we start closing our emotions off with our family, and then our kids wonder why we're disconnected. And you can see how it perpetuates the cycle. So when you're given a moment in a safe container with these strong people to actually take the lid off of Pandora's box, so to speak, becomes very, very powerful very quickly. And I think that's a critical piece for this. And so it's not, even though it may look like it from Instagram and Facebook, it's not a tactics class. We're not teaching tactics. We will put you through tactical training, but the real root cause of it is to learn about your mental and emotional states in those stressful situations. And that's a powerful spot when it starts off raw with being vulnerable right off the bat.
With necessity versus demand, like we talked before, when you do something you know you need to do, that's the most courage. So to be vulnerable, to know, God, I know I'm supposed to open up here, but it's easier to just drink, it's easier to close up and just watch TV, whatever. That's actually cowardice. The courage is saying, I need to, this is what I need, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to go through it. And on the other side of it is magic. On the other side of it is a world where I mean, power, and not power in the ego sense, but power in using all your systems the way they're meant to be used, power in terms of having these men and women around you that are of that same caliber. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. I want to tell one quick funny story about tuna real quick. Is that okay? Because
It's always okay to tell a story about tuna.
Some of our listeners are probably like, tuna. So, Rick has his nicknames for everyone. I'm Ollie, which I love.
I've been upgraded from the thin Viking to the fat Viking. FYI, it hurt my feelings a little
sympathy. Tuna was not part of the cadre for my first go around. And so then we start talking about the next go around, and now Tuna's involved. I have never met him. I didn't even know who he was. And I have someone, on my team that does my emails for me because I'm not, listen, I just get a lot of emails. I want to make sure everyone's answered in a prompt manner. So I have someone who does my emails for me. So she is kind of relaying this information about, getting the cadre together. And she says, they keep referring to tuna, and I don't like, tuna needs to do this and tuna needs to do that. And are you tuna? I was like, I don't know. Am I tuna? I was like, who the fuck is tuna? And if it's me, you need to tell me so I can get on this stuff. Okay. Turns out I'm not tuna. Okay. But someone else is, who is amazing, great, fun guy. And here's my little one thing I'll say. I was house mom at the training in Florida because I had our baby there and, whatever. While they were all out, training in the middle of the night, I cleaned the whole house and I did Tuna's laundry. And he didn't say anything. So Tuna, if you're listening, I know that was your laundry at the dryer. I folded it. You're welcome. That's all I have to say. Continue.
Called out publicly. He's been holding on to that story for a hot second. So as a matter of time.
I know, I've been waiting for the right. I was like, I'm going
for the strategic moment to drop it. I think to kind of sum it all up, the best way that I've found to describe it is, it is a beat down. It is physically demanding, but that's not what it's about. Really, that beat down and that physical exertion is just basically a vehicle that gets the training staff where they need to be. And that means that these students, their bodies have basically failed them. Everything physically they have to compensate is gone. Now what's left is the mind. And that's where the instructors go to work. And so I think that's probably the best and easiest way I could describe the whole thing. But it is very, very much a unique but impressive class for sure.
Well, and that's honestly, so it inspired me that what you just said is like, we take it to the point where there's nothing left but the mind by getting the body so worn down. And that's honestly why I argue that I'm going to go back and being an executive member of Yoga for First Responders, put this back in there, is that's exactly why I believe that yoga is actually the exact right tool for this kind of work, because I can dial up and down the stress and pressure on your body very, very incrementally, very, very purposefully. And I hear it all the time, and it doesn't look like it, but I would go to the gym. Like if I had a stressful day or a bad day, I would go and just like sit on the rowing machine and like beat myself up on the rowing machine. Right. Like we have folks that say, oh, I bang it out in the gym. That's where I go. And that's my stress relief. But your body is going to give out before the mind does if you're in that situation. And so, or your mind's going to quit even before the body does, either way. So with yoga, we can actually put you in a position where both your mind and body are going to fatigue at a very similar rate. And then these guys that are high performers, that they get the adrenaline dump and they're going to go and knock it out of the park on their next search and rescue evolution in the middle of the night when they're in yoga class. Now their mind's really starting to mess with them, because it's almost that moment of silence with their body and with their mind. And that's where I become the hardest class in this beat down class, is doing a yoga class. And it surprises people, because it really then becomes the mental game. It's that moment where, because we've all been there. And I told people this in the class, like, I put you in a position in a bunker gear and you guys are like, I can't get there. And then I watch you literally do a hose evolution and you put your body in the exact same position. So it's not that the body can't, or maybe it is that the body can't, and we are just over pushing through the boundaries and barriers. And then we wonder why we're strained and sprained afterwards, instead of actually paying attention to what's happening between those 6 inches between the ears. And so being able to dial up that body's response perfectly and incrementally, and I have ways to do it, we have ways to do it, is extremely powerful, because then all that's left is your mind. And I said it from the very beginning of that class, the hardest posture I'll ever have them do is stand still and breathe. Stand still in a very specific way that I'm going to watch, and just stay there and do that. And the mind will quit long before the body does, every time, guaranteed. So now that's where the magic starts happening. That's where I get to work with you.
You guys, it just hit me. You know how I started in the beginning, like, what the heck? Why do, tell me why people aren't doing this? Okay. You guys just talked about it. You were saying, both of you, that what makes the cadre of developing high performance special is their vulnerability, their authenticity. Yoga exposes vulnerabilities. So that's why high performers, they're the ones who are able to be vulnerable to, hey, yes, show me my weaknesses, because that's what I can get better in. I want you to show me the weaknesses. They're the ones that never have a problem with yoga. It's the ones that are so afraid of being vulnerable and so afraid of showing their weaknesses that are actual assholes to me. I'm serious. They're cruel. People will be so mean to me because they don't want to get on a yoga mat.
Yeah.
I've been called names before because someone doesn't want to get on a yoga mat. And it just hit me. Okay, what's the common thread? High performers, vulnerability. Yoga, vulnerability. People who are just, complacent, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of showing weakness. What does yoga do? Show your vulnerability and weaknesses. That's the correlation. So somehow we got to address that little element of authenticity and vulnerability, exposing weaknesses as a way to get better.
And that's something that I've actually, I speak about a lot, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything we've talked about lately, but it's, this false veil of the fire department, the type A personalities and, the heroes and blah, blah, blah. But really what it is a bunch of firehouses that are full of people that are scared to death to show any weakness. They're
100%.
scared to death to fail. They're scared to death to try a new technique because they don't know how to do it. That's what the fire service is underneath it all, when you want to get real. And it's sad because there are a lot of people that go their entire careers and leave piles and piles of experience and knowledge just wasted because they don't take the opportunity to share it, or they don't take the opportunity to face those fears or the discomfort of these things that basically just paralyzes them. And I don't think that's too strong of a term. I have literally seen it. These people, they pretend to be that strong, manly, person, but inside they're just a scared little kid that doesn't want to show that. And so I totally agree with every bit of that, for sure.
Eric, you mentioned a few days ago, you were saying, I realize that I don't like to fail. And you equated it, you were like, because in fire service, failure equals death. Someone, it's life or death. And so maybe that's it too. Maybe it's internally, if they fail at one thing, they know that they could possibly fail at their job, and that's terrible. I mean, maybe there's that correlation there too. And one thing I want to say too about the, alpha male, I've encountered, not always, okay, this is generalization here, but when I have dealt with women in public safety who have to step up more to hold their own, can sometimes have even more of that than the men do, because they have
overcompensating.
And so not always, but I have seen that a lot, where there's even more resistance to vulnerability because they're trying to fight the female thing to begin with. Anyway.
Yeah. No, and the failure concept is an interesting conversation to have. And I was because we train for success. Like if we go to CPR training, we save everybody in CPR class. If we do search and rescue drills, we always save the victim. In the training grounds, we train for success, and anything less than success is failure. And yet, once you get out onto the streets, the percentages would say the exact opposite. I mean, I was talking with a military member who's in charge of basically the medics that go into combat, get soldiers, get airmen, get Marines, and pull them out. And in their trainings, they're saving 100% of people. And the statistics show that once they actually get out into combat, they're going to save about 4 to 8%. And so we're literally training that, we're going to save everybody and life's going to be great and hunky-dory fine. And then we get out in the real world and it's a very, very different ball game. And we don't know, we've never trained to fail. So we don't even know how our bodies and minds are going to respond when we do fail, when that's actually the reality of it. And so this is the argument that I make and that we make, is that we can fail in yoga class. I can put you in a position that will make you fail. I'm going to make you fall out of balance. I will. And it is on purpose. It is, because if I make you fall out of balance, that's a very safe failure. You literally are going to step out of tree pose, for example, and step off to the side. And I'm going to watch people get so frustrated that they fell out of a balance. Like, who gives a shit, man? Like, literally, like, watch how you respond to that. That's how you're going to respond to, and this is falling out of balance in a safe position with your brothers and sisters. Who cares? So now imagine how you're going to react out in the field, out in the world, if you're to make a mistake and fail. Like, we are humans. We are fallible. We can't remember everything. We can control what we can control, and the outcome is still going to be a quote unquote failure. And so if we don't start training and at least being aware of what happens when quote unquote failure happens, then again, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And that again leads back into the proactive training. That's okay, let's find a safe way to train and see how I'm going to react. And yoga ultimately at the end of the day is about self-reflection. Like, how am I going to react? How do I respond to this stuff? And so if I can't do something, and because I'm tired, that my ego is pushing through, that I'm not going to adapt to a scalar drill. I know that when you're tired, you're dangerous, because you're going to push yourself deeper into the building than you should, rather than, be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm at yellow on my air. I should probably swap crews. No, your ego is going to drive you past it. And I can see that on the yoga mat. I can see how you're going to react when you fail or stumble. And so it's all about that self-reflection. And so I'm very critical about making sure that our students do actually quote unquote fail on the yoga mat in a safe environment, so they can learn about that failure, notice it, say, yep, I fell out of balance. I'm going to get back into it with mindfulness, with breath, and continue to work and move forward. Because at the end of the day, that is the definition of resilience training. And it's no longer a check the box training. It's actually applicable to life, and it's actually can see the results from it. And that's a whole nother ball of wax for another day, about how resilience training has become a new 4-letter word, because it has become check the box training instead of actually training us to be truly resilient individuals.
And it's a joke. A lot of people make resilience training such a joke that I can understand why people roll their eyes at it, Anyway, again, that's for another episode.
No, it's interesting that you brought up the whole fear of failure, or just that I would describe myself as the same way. I hate failing. I said fear of failure, more of just hate. I hate to fail. But I think that if that hatred came because I associated it with dying, would be more honorable than what I hate it for. I hate it because of the embarrassment that comes with it. I'm a firefighter. If I show any kind of weakness or any chink in my armor, I know that at least 4 people are going to jump all over me like the dinosaurs on Jurassic Park. That is why I hate it. So a piece of me, I have found that to get through that failure and to get over that, the trying to avoid it, is that I just share it. If I share those failures, if I talk about them, if I, write a blog about whatever it is, that's sometimes the only way I can kind of get past things, especially if it's something that truly has bothered me that I failed at. And so just kind of learning about myself, that has become something that I know I can use to get through some things. But it's just interesting that, it's goofy. It's stupid. And thankfully, for the most part, I don't avoid things because of the possibility of failing, just because I know how important it is. But there's a lot of people out there that's the only thing holding them back, is just they don't want to look like that person, or they don't want to give the fuel to somebody else to make fun of them. And so that could be life or death right there. And the difference is you don't want to be made fun of. And so it sucks, but that's how it is.
Well, with you mentioned that could be life or death right there. That actually goes back to, to our survival. So if you do feel embarrassed, if you're made fun of by your crew, down deep in our animal reptilian brain, caveman brain, that's a threat of being kicked out of the tribe, being kicked out of the group, being kicked out of the safety in numbers, being out of the cave, vulnerable and by yourself. So, that's why I don't want to blame anyone for these feelings. They really go back to this ancient survival of safety in numbers, being accepted. And so stepping out of bounds in our survival reptilian brain is the fear of death. So so that is, it feels silly, but it is, it is a real thing that I want everyone to know, that if you feel that way, it comes from somewhere, honest. And I think you're absolutely right. And that's why I tell people, we've made a point that if you practice yoga with us, you won't fail. It's not about failure or success. If you can breathe and you have a spine, then you can practice yoga and we will make it work. It's not a race to touch the toes. The goal isn't to touch the toes. The goal is to get on the yoga mat and do it. And your greatest effort is your greatest victory. So if you're on the yoga mat, you've already succeeded.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many great benefits of all this. And again, it's one thing hearing it, but it's another thing to actually see it in the works of happening. And again, another step, if you actually put it to work yourself and feel those things. So it just almost leaves you kind of speechless, as far as you can only talk so much about it. But I know that both of you, and I'm gaining a passion for it myself, is just you want to keep trying to shake people and get them to that, to that point to where they're accepting of it. But I'm sure it's like anything else. It's a slow grind. You guys are definitely doing some great things and getting it out there. It might not be as fast as you all wish it would be, or as fast as it should be for the health of everybody, but you're definitely doing some great things. And that's something I'm proud to be, in a, just to know you guys and to suck up as much as the knowledge that I can, for sure.
how I feel about meeting you, Jeremy. Yeah, you're doing great stuff, and I'm proud to be associated with you.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. It's been a pleasure getting to know you personally the last few months, and appreciate you having us on your show. I mean, it's you've got your circle of influences larger than I mean, shared between friends of friends and firefighters and those that know you and don't even know who you are. But I can tell everybody that's listening to this that Jeremy is a stand-up dude, and share his podcast, share his blogs far and wide. And from our personal conversations, I'm super excited to see what else comes from Mr. Jeremy Sanders, because I have a feeling this is just the beginning from what we've talked about.
I appreciate that. And also, if you are listening to my version of this podcast, they will be releasing it as well on theirs. And so if you do want to go check out theirs, I'll give you both of you a second here to plug whatever you want to, but they do have a podcast out as well that they've just started. So just real quickly, how have you guys liked that? Is it something you think you're going to enjoy? Is it something different?
I mean, I love talking, so yes, you can probably see.
Yeah,
We pour ourselves a glass of whiskey and we just talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and so what we shared earlier with you is that we love going on podcasts because it gets us into new circles that we've never been in before. And so at the end of the day, we're doing an introductory mission for all of these podcasts, and we really wanted a platform to go deeper on some of the thoughts that, because we keep saying like, oh, that's for another episode, that's for another episode, that's for another episode. Well, we can't be on everybody's podcast every week. People get tired of listening to us on Crew First Culture at some point. And so that's why we're like, we need to start our own podcast so we can really start to dive deeper into these topics and really have on that next episode. And so that's where we almost make our podcast a supplement to the shows that we are on as the introductory shows. So if you have curiosities about why we do what we do and how we do it, that's why you'd want to tune in to the Yoga for First Responders podcast.
Called On Air, and Eric made that up. And when he made that up, it was brilliant. I was like, oh my God, Eric, that is brilliant, right? And you guys, I'm assuming you all know why I thought it was brilliant. But then a couple days later, he's like making the logo, and he was like, wait, hey, On Air is kind of like on air. And I was like, isn't that why, like SCBA, like, isn't that why you came up with it? No, I was just thinking radio on air. I was like, what? I can't give you any credit of being amazing now, because that's what I thought he was talking about. So it's called On Air on all the platforms. But, for the training app, the on-demand training app that we were talking about with Jeremy, that's called On Demand. And you can go to our website, which is yogaforfirstresponders.org. And you can find our on-demand training app. It has tons and tons of videos, from breath work to yoga to mindfulness, all of that stuff for sleep, stuff for waking up. We also have our online course platform called YFFR University. That has that 6-week online course that went through the pilot study. We also have shorter courses on there. We're adding to that. That's our digital stuff. But if you feel like you want in-person training to become an instructor, no experience necessary, or to have an in-person instructor come out to you for in-service training or whatever, you can email success@yogaforfirstresponders.org, and they'll hook you up. So that's everything. Our blog, you can find it all on our website. And then for our podcast, Jeremy, tell us where our audience can keep following you.
So for me, I try really hard to keep it all very easy. Everything is pretty much Crew First Culture, and that's with a 1ST. Instagram, Facebook is Crew First Culture. I've got a website try to keep it up to date with any kind of upcoming events, and there's a store and just all kinds of stuff. That's crewfirstculture.com. Email is crewfirstculture@yahoo.com, and the website has my phone number on it if that's the route you would rather take to. So pretty easy to find me as well. And that's about it.
And you said you have a shop, so you have some swag?
Always have swag. It is something I've figured out is a problem for me because I enjoy designing things,
Me
either
too.
stickers,
Yeah.
or whatever. So I've had to really slow it down because my demand in the design of creating things has well out exceeded the demand for the product. So
Could
I
be
had to
both.
slow it down a little bit.
Well, so this is not going to help with that then, because I've been writing down some great things you said, and some could go on a shirt. And I don't know, maybe a co-branded YFFR Crew First
Sounds good to me.
Culture shirt.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I can get on it.
Sounds good. Just one last question that I have for you all, or for you both, and you might have answered it in your talking about the online stuff, but so if somebody is listening that doesn't really know about what we've talked about, that hasn't really been introduced to yoga, but is very intrigued and wants to really get their feet wet, what do you suggest is kind of that first step to take for them?
Yeah, so I would suggest 2 steps. Number one, if you want to just watch a quick video, go to ondemand.yogaforfirstresponders.org. And there's a start here section, and there's a 20-minute introductory briefing video. No yoga, just why we do what we do. And then the very next video that I would click onto is the introduction to 3-part breath. Those would be literally my first step and my second step on how to get introduced to this world. The rest of the start here section has other videos that you can do, including
Those are all free.
which are all free. There's enough free resources on that website that you could literally do a yoga practice a day for the rest of your life and be very, very happy. We obviously hope that at some point you support us enough or like it enough that you'd end up supporting us, but free resources forever, go use them. So, and then the next part is if you want some literature, I would email info at yogaforfirstresponders.org and say, send me the buy-in package, because we have roughly a 30-page ebook, very big font, because I like to say that firefighters, we like to color with crayons. So very simple to understand, but it shows a lot of the science behind what we do. And then that's something you can pass off to your crew or to your chief or anything else, or just for your own knowledge information of what is there. So ondemand.yogaforfirstresponders.org, the intro briefing and 3-part breath. And then if you're still interested, ask for the buy-in package.
And I'll add one more.
Perfect.
On YFFR University, there's a short course called Introduction to Yoga. You can do that course, and it's short, gives you practices, but gives you the very, very basics, and you can literally go from there. So,
okay, perfect. Well, man, I really appreciate it. Definitely, I knew it was going to be a great conversation, and so you made more than my expectations were there. So I appreciate that. Do you guys have anything else that you want to bring up before we go?
I don't think so. This was a lot of fun. So thank
Yeah.
you for taking the time to have the conversation with us.
Just thank you very much. And I enjoy being in your circle, my friend. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
All about efficiency here. So
directly or indirectly, however you want to call it. But
yeah.
no, I just want to challenge everybody out there to really put some of this stuff to action. What we've talked about is not just our beliefs. It's not just, some crazy up in the air stuff that you probably have associated with yoga in the past. This is real information, real data, and our bodies need it. So I really want to kind of challenge everybody to look some of these things up and try it out. Give it a try and see how it goes, and really invest some time and some energy into it, because it will be a very good benefit to your career and in your life. So I will leave it with that. I thank you both for your time here and your friendship. And until next time, as always, stay humble and do work.